Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back down the rabbit hole. My name is Monty Hook and I am here in the studio in Bali. And today I'm joined online by Mr. Jamie Gonzalez. Where are you? And you're still in Bondi?
Down in Sydney, Bondi Beach, sunny Bondi Beach today. So,
Mate,
still here.
Beautiful parts of the world, Bali to Bondi. What lucky guys.
There's quite a few people probably doing that. Bali, Bondi, Byron. It's the three Bs.
Good point. So look, man, I wanted to get you on the show because I've known you for, 8 or 9 years. I did some work with you back in the day, and I'm really a fan of the work that you do in terms of mentoring people to, uncover their purpose and their truth and live very authentic lives. And I really relate to your story, your background. You used to be a hustler. You started really young as a property developer. But I also love your story in that, if I remember correctly, you were kind of always in tune. Like when you were young, maybe as a teenager, you knew that there was something more to life. You knew that there was more than what we understand with our five senses. But you still went down this path of hustling and working for money, and you did really well in that, is my understanding. So I'm really curious to understand that story and how that led you to live the life that you live now, which I really relate to, and I feel like it's a beautiful thing to show people that they can have a different kind of success, and they can have the financial wealth, and they can have what they thought was abundance, but it's in a different kind of way. So yeah, man. So give us a bit of your version of the story and what you're known for in terms of what you do now.
Yeah, well, taking me back. The story, it was probably years ago when I was in my teens. I went down a very spiritual path. I was very weird as a child. Like I'd ask my mum, who am I? Why am I here? Mum was like, what's wrong? Why are you asking me these questions? Just go be a kid, enjoy life. But I had this weird sort of curiosity, and it was from a young age. I was the kind of kid that was like, if I saw a rock, I wanted to know what was under it. And that kind of questioning about myself started early. So when I was 14 years old, my parents divorced, and I left home, and through very strange circumstances, which is just out there. So I won't even go there because it's out there. How this all came about. It's got to do with aliens and stuff, right?
This is the right show for that, man. This is the rabbit hole.
Mate, it was, okay, man. I haven't actually spoken about this, but I left home at 14. I moved in with one of my friends over in Bellevue Hill. I was in Hunters Hill. I moved in there for a while. And within the first couple of weeks of living there, my friends were this I grew up in a very Catholic family, went to a very Catholic school, was probably looking for myself through that faith and didn't feel like I'd found it. I was still very questioning. I got into trouble a lot in my religion classes because of the questions I would ask. And my teacher or the priest would get very annoyed with me and I'd be chucked out. So I was this naughty boy. But anyway, I went to this family friends of ours, and they were very Jewish, and I was very interested in their religion too. I would always look for things through different aspects of my life, even then. Anyway, and they weren't spiritual in any sense at all, right? They're living in Bellevue Hill, they're quite wealthy, they had this lifestyle going on and everything. There was no talk of meditation, spirituality, energy, nothing, right? And this thing happened where when I moved there, his mum, I can't really talk about this. I've never spoken about this before. But anyway, his mum one night had a friend over and they lost time. And what happened was she says they got abducted, pretty much they got taken away. The weird thing was I was there that night, I was there that day, and that night or the morning after that night, people came round to the house, just came to see this person, my friend's mum, and took some pictures of some stuff that was marks that were on her arm that then later disappeared. It was really weird. And so she besides all that, not to go into too much detail, because that stuff just is weird for me. But what happened to her in that moment was she was this completely different, Jamie, I've got to share something with you. Like what I thought life was about, it isn't. I've seen all this stuff and life's about energy. There's all this stuff about who you truly are. Like started talking to me about some pretty crazy stuff. But for me, I was 14. I was already going through a process in leaving home. So I was going through this emotional stuff, but she really supported me to go through that in a way I'd never realized. And I became very sensitive and very calm in my process with what she supported me. And so she started telling me stories all about why we're really here and what's going on for humanity and all this sort of stuff. Some pretty out there stuff. She started talking to me about other entities and energy and some spiritual stuff and the good light, the dark light. It was all this stuff. It was full on. And what essentially that led me to, though, was I started meditating from there. So she got me into meditation. She started going to these groups where they would catch up and we'd all sit around and go into these deep dives energetically. And I started learning about energy. So I started doing my energy Reiki course. I was 15 at the time. So I went, and then I weird shit was happening one day. I'm 15, I'm starting to dive into this stuff. Everything's energy. I'm starting to learn about auras and all sorts of stuff, right? And I'm at a Catholic school, so I don't tell anybody because I'm even what happened to me was just weird, right? So I'm not telling anyone, but I'm going through this full weird awakening, and part of me is finding it intriguing and interesting. Another part of me is freaking out because I'm sensing things that I don't know what to do with. I'm literally sitting in my classroom and just seeing auras above all my classmates, just weird shit at 15. So, and then I started having people just come to me literally in the street and start to talk to me about stuff and open up to stuff. As a kid, I'd be walking home from school, just weird stuff was happening. So there was a part of me that was also, though, enjoying connecting with myself, and I was feeling this greater sense of connection that I'd never felt before. And I felt like there was this greater possibility to who we are, this big story, and it was really intriguing, but also frightening. So I started going through stuff of there were the entities that were attaching to me. I found myself having a bath in beer once, to get rid of these other entities. I had a wand, I got into having a copper wand with different crystals on it that I would use. I was went through this spiritual phase when I was a teenager. And so anyway, and it was great. It was it awakened certain things in me, but pretty much I got to 18 and I was about to leave school and I went, you know what? This stuff is out there. I need to get on with life. And that was sort of the point I was at. Everyone's what are you going to do now? You're leaving school. How are you going to survive in the world? All that sort of stuff. And I kind of had a bit of that because I left home and then found myself surviving. But I think one of the things I still felt was important to me was, surviving financially, having an income, feeling safe in that world. Even though I was going through this whole spiritual journey, but I didn't know how to bring that into the real world at all. It was just two different worlds. So I pretty much went into more personal development driven stuff, trying to find application for what I knew. So 17, I went my first Anthony Robbins, I'm working on hot coals, going through his stuff. Then I'm studying Wayne Dwyer, Brian Tracy, then in my early 20s, I'm Dr. DeMartini, I'm searching for truth. How do I apply and live this stuff? And I feel I got to certain levels. I even got into NET, NLP, so much stuff, and all these, I had so many different crazy experiences, which I could talk to you about for ages, right? Through my 20s. But at that time at 18, it was more about how do I survive in the world. So when I left school, I pretty much at 19 got into property pretty quickly. And I was in commercial property, commercial leasing. That's where I started. And pretty much that went into working with developers. So I wasn't a developer per se. I was working with developers, big companies, banks, all sorts of stuff in finding projects and sites. Anyway, I did really well Like by the time I was 25, I'd hit my first million. I had, property portfolio, all sorts of stuff. I bought into a nightclub. I was 20, almost 25.
That's the dream in your 20s.
Mate, I was a rat bag. Like, the whole spiritual thing. I was like, yeah, I know all this stuff about who we are in life, but then at one thing I was like full rampant in like, all right, it's all about the world out there. Like there was this huge disconnect going on, to be honest. And I felt that later in my 20s, but I didn't notice it till then. There was still this big like pull to an excitement because I felt so much energy, but I thought it was all about my circumstances still. I thought it was because of what I was doing. It wasn't about who I was being yet. I didn't really put that together. So, I went down this path, had great successes. I'm hanging out with incredible people. Like I'm on private jets over in Europe, going to different parties and just hanging out with all sorts of people in the world, right? And then at 27, I started to feel like something was like wrong. Like I was like, I've got everything and I'm starting to feel really like empty. And I was like, I couldn't work it out. And I had some interesting mentors around me, like really successful people. And one of those Australians will know, like, was James Packer. I was working with the Packer family and I would connect with James a couple of times. And there's one instance where I realized how unhappy he was. And I can talk about that because he's come out and said that, and that triggered something for me though, because I was like, fuck, this guy's got billions, and he's not happy. Like, and it made me reflect. And I was like, what am I doing chasing still that, in the external, I'm still chasing my finances, still about how well I'm doing in the world. I was measuring myself according to that. But then I was looking at this guy and in terms of measuring, he was way out there, and I'm like, but then he's unhappy. Like, what the hell? You know what I mean? I was like, so I became very insecure. There were a couple of things that happened like that. And I felt this insecurity when I was like in my mind going, why? I shouldn't feel insecure. I've got all these things. I even know all this stuff about myself, my mind, who I am, but I'm feeling really like insecure to the point where I got really depressed, like at 28. And that's where I noticed a disconnect big time. I was like, I had this connection to something, but I couldn't live it. And I realized that because if I'd lost everything that I'd built up over those years, I knew my head would spin. I was like, but then who am I? Like, what am I without all this? Isn't that the point why we came here, to build ourselves up? Look at me, how successful I am. Like that's where I got real lost. And I couldn't, like, my mind started to take me, like my thoughts started to really take me to a dark place. I was like, what's the point anymore? Like, you've done all this stuff, but yet you're still limited. You're still influenced and controlled by your circumstance. So I went to this pretty dark place, had a few scary moments where I thought I was done. I was out of here. But there was something that happened in one of those last moments ever in my life where it was probably one of the darkest moments, but something happened in that moment where I felt this complete, like, I know, this sense of like joy, peace, and a different sort of love for no reason at all.
Like a letting go or something.
I wasn't trying to let go. I was just sort of really dark moment in my life, and I was almost about to end my life, and something happened, and I felt this, and I don't know like how much time there was in that evening where I was in that space, but it's like nothing mattered, and I felt so alive. But I was going, what's going on? Like, I'm at my dark. Why am I feeling this now? How do I live this? Like, it's not because of anything, but it's been here. And I was like, how do I live this? How do I? And I said to myself, I don't know who the fuck I was talking to, but I said, show me how to live this. I was like, I don't want to be here anymore, And literally from that night, obviously I'm still here. And from that night, within the next few weeks, it was a few weeks later, I bumped into someone you've had on this show, Amir Zogi. And I didn't bump into him. I'd met Amir years ago because he was a promoter of speakers. So I knew of Amir, but in the space of that 3 weeks, 3 different people like each week, said you should go see Amir speak. And I was like, what? Like, why would I go see Amir? He's like a promoter. He's like, what's he doing now? Taking content. And I had this big thing too, Monty, about personal development and speakers and teachers and everything. I had this aversion to, like, I studied under so many of them, but yet I feel like all they did was give me tools for my mind, but no one has ever showed me how do you really live that stuff so you can just be yourself and not be a tool. Yeah. Like, you know, that, so I had this whole thing too. I was like, everyone's sharing information. Everyone's sharing what I feel's going around, and it's great to listen to, and it feels nice for a moment, but I wasn't free still. And I was almost frustrated with that. So I had this aversion to even going seeing Amir speak, but it's just weird the way that happened and the people that told me to go see him speak. So I took note and I went along, but still I was frustrated. I remember walking out. I was like, because I just boxed. I heard what he was saying. I was like, I've heard similar stuff. I know this, whatever. Anyway, and someone grabbed me on the way out and I told them where I was at in my life. And Amir noticed me walking out or something, and I got asked to come back to a more intimate setting with him and a few people in relation to some other stuff that he was doing. I remember I went to that night and he was speaking, and it wasn't about what he was saying, and maybe because I dropped my judgment and was more open, but what he was saying connected me to that feeling I had weeks prior. And I was like, whatever you got, let's go. Like, it just was a moment. I never forget it. And that was just over 10 years ago. So my life became then about what he was sharing, which for the first time for me after 15 years of searching was like, fuck, someone's delivering stuff from the unknown. And although it sounds similar, it's the space he's delivering it from that's connecting me with myself. It's not about what he's saying. It's not about him as a speaker. It's not about him. And I hadn't had that before. So I was like, wow, like this felt real for me. This is what I'm after. And I knew, you know, part of me as well is where, like, you know, you ask the question, show me how to live this. You create someone to show up. You know, you create the circumstances to show up to support you in that. You know, if you get your ego out of the way, you know, you realize it's just yourself showing up, you know, through someone to help you realize the answer that you've asked of yourself, which you already know, but you go through this process of realizing it. So that's where that journey started. And that was 10 years ago. So my life became all about following that feeling and knowing that what I feel in my heart, what I feel in my being moment to moment is more real than anything else going in my life. And it's for me to align myself with that moment to moment in my life and continue to move in that space, regardless of what's going on in the world, regardless of what I know of myself moments ago or years ago or what could be. And that's where I started this thing about called Limitless Living, you know, and Limitless Living wasn't about living a big life and that sort of shit. That's not what it was about. It was about feeling that anything was possible, not for any reason, but because of who you are, you know, who I was being. And I wanted to know that was real. So that was where that journey started. And yeah, some crazy things happened. In that week I met Amir, I was driving back into my office, still had my property gig. I had an office in Potts Point with my business partner. And I just had this feeling that, like, I was done. And I was just like, I had to follow this feeling. Like, and this is the point where I find people I don't know where other people are out listening to this, but sometimes you got to go and think that, like, what you're looking for is out there in things. Like, it's in your career, it's in a relationship, it's in your health, it's in something that you built up to make so meaningful. And it's almost, you got to go to the extent of getting there and then realizing that ain't it, to then go, hang on, what's real?
Yeah.
Because otherwise you don't get what, like, someone, like, because I've heard people, like, you know, in the years prior to that part of my journey share things like that, like, but I didn't understand it because those things still mattered to me. You know, how much money I had mattered to me because that was what I thought gave me and it's not that money's not important. It's important. We're here to use it. But it was using me for so long. Yeah. It had so much power in it, you know.
It owned you instead of you owning it.
100%, but only because I'd given my power to it, because I was brought up like that. And I thought this world, it was about having things of this world that would then give me permission to live the things that I felt in my heart, which was backwards.
Yeah.
Because if that's true, I was going to be a slave to this world for the rest of my life. And I felt what that was like. And it didn't matter how amazing my world was in my 20s, how much I'd built it up and how successful I was still always a slave to it because my power was in the world. So
yeah, man, that's really really interesting story. And what I'm hearing through that, like what you were sharing when you were 14, is like, I mean, you were given a real gift, I mean, regardless of the circumstances of how you landed there, and that might have been tough and traumatic, but you're obviously given a gift. And like what occurs to me as you're sharing that is how many people are given the gifts, but they don't know that it's there. They don't see that it's there, and they don't get the opportunity to kind of tune into that. And I think that's, what I'm hearing with you is that you were just very attuned to what the gift was. And and like you said, like that's who you were in your soul, in your spirit, but then you had to go do all the other shit that isn't you, only to, it's like the alchemist, like going on the life journey, only to come back and realize, oh yeah, that's who I am.
Yeah, I think we do have, everyone has different opportunities like that. Like, I love that. Yeah, there's a gift sometimes, but sometimes our awareness isn't in who we are, it's in what we are. So we're still looking at what we think is more important, So maybe my gift, there was an opportunity when I was in my teens, but I still had, I was young and things still mattered to me. I was chasing success in the world. I was looking for approval. I was looking for people to give me recognition. I was looking to be loved, for who I would become. So I missed the opportunity there, but I look back and I go, there's nothing missed, because that was perfect to go lose myself in that sense, But then, yes, an opportunity came when I was 28 in that moment, and I had a feeling arise. I was like, well, what am I going to live for? For the feeling now, or still continue to make it about everything else that I thought mattered? So, I suppose, if you call it my soul aligned or whatever, but I listened, and it's not easy, Monty, what I'm talking about, and I'm sure you're a guy that goes and does, you're living from this space. It's very opposite. And it wasn't easy in the beginning, it was like, I thought I was going crazy. Yeah. Like when I drove into my office that day, and then I left, like said to my business partner, I got to leave. And he goes, why? And I go, I don't know, it's just what I feel. And I'm saying these words, and I'm sweating. Like, like there's a part of me just going, what the fuck are you doing? Yeah. So I'm like, but I'm just like, although I'm sweating and I'm having a bit of a reaction about I'm really doing this, there was a feeling of like aliveness there.
This is it.
This is it. There was a feeling of aliveness, and I was like, I don't know, even though it's scaring the hell out of me, I was like, I'm feeling like nothing's happened yet, but I'm feeling alive for no reason. That feeling was there. Yeah. And that's what gave me the willingness. I was like, and that was my guide. When I felt that, even though I was scared shitless or whatever, I was like, this is it. So I want to know that staying present to this, not running out with, fuck, I could end up on the street. I could be bankrupt. What's my girlfriend going to think of me? What's my parents? Staying true to here. I want to know that's more real. So then to see my world reflect what I'm feeling, rather than thinking I have to keep going at the world to give me a feeling. Yeah. To give me that, because I chased that and I never got there, Yeah.
So, it's awesome that you figured it out at 28, because, I mean, I wish I'd figured it out at 28. It took me another 10 years. Hang on, I didn't figure it out. I think, like you said, there was an opportunity. Yeah. And I wouldn't say, I'm on a journey. I wouldn't say I figured anything out. And I'm very careful with that too, because there has been moments on my journey the past 10 years where I've gone, oh yeah, I think I know something. And every time I think I know something, I've built an identity around what I think I know. Right. Yeah. And I can get in my own way in that. Yeah, to me, it's to continually empty myself. It's another version of the same trap.
100%, 100%. I went through Monty, like, you've seen, I have a bit of an Instagram thing going on, a bit of a following there and stuff like that. And that kind of happened very naturally, but there's times where I've gone and slipped into, I've got something to teach here, something to share. And when I've done that, like I've disconnected, and it's been a bit of a journey for me there, because, I've gone, well, what am I, I feel like I've fallen into an ego thing. Yeah. It's like, well, look at me. And to be honest, like even now, like I only caught that a couple of years ago. It was a 7-year journey there. And, having a mentor around me was fantastic. Like Amir would always, ask the right questions so I could realize the answers for myself. It was amazing. And, and the answer usually is just about me connecting in with where do I feel light? Where do I feel open? Where do I feel myself? And sometimes if something doesn't feel light, something doesn't feel open, something doesn't feel connected, and there's a sense of fulfillment for no reason, I look and go, well, hang on a sec. Where am I looking to get something now? Where am I looking to attain? And every time I'm looking to do something like that, that's where I get led down a path, and you end up with a shitty feeling.
Yeah.
Because you've fallen for this illusion that I'm not already whole and complete as I am now. So I start putting power into, well, there's something to get over here. And when you do that, that's where I find it's a push. It's hard, and it's difficult to do all the time, because sometimes letting go of those things, is tough.
Yeah, I think that's the way I'm thinking about it, it's kind of almost like the game of life, because it's almost like it never ends. It's like, because you just evolve and there's another version of you, as you said, and it's like, and then you become that identity to some degree, and then you kind of got to snap yourself out of that and go, okay, well, what's that? And it's like a never ending journey.
Look, the ego's got many masks, and when you think about it, you sort of do a bit of work on yourself and you start to understand what the ego is really about. I find the ego is a part of me looking to exist, is looking to survive. Yeah. So you don't think, if you were threatened with death, how much would you fight for your survival? That's what I look at. And I can see how many times I've done that from an ego point of view. I don't judge myself from it. It's learning. It's an opportunity to realize, well, what's real? The part of me looking to survive that was never real, or the part of me that exists in a space where it's not about what life is about or what I'm doing. It's about who I'm being. It's like this space that doesn't need definition. It's a space where I don't need to define myself in any sense. And when I'm in that space, there is just complete aliveness and possibility to be anything moment to moment. And I don't then subscribe to something.
Yeah, and to create anything in that moment, because I think when like you've gone down the personal development route and all the Tony Robbins, and I've been on a pretty similar journey, and when you're in that space, it's like you're fired up, you're pumped up, but it's almost like you're motivated, like I'm going to push harder. I'm going to punch down more walls. I'm going to run faster. I'm going to talk louder. And that's not anything to do with who you're being. That's almost the complete opposite. And then when you kind of realize that I don't need to focus on what I'm doing, I don't need to focus on trying to articulate my purpose, or, when you can just focus on who am I being, what makes me like, who can I be that makes me feel alive, the version of me that makes me feel alive. And then all those other things take care of themselves, like what you're doing, what your job is, what your business is, what your purpose is. It works itself out if you focus on who you are.
Totally. But you go and tell someone that's still very entrenched in how much money they have, what they're doing for a career, what people think of them. Like, that's very difficult to then go, well, I just trust it's going to work out, because you've been getting a sense of love from all those things if you got power in it. So what, you're going to say no to love, to a form of love? And to me, that was hard. That was hard to step aside and then realize what the real love is about. Like not the human-made love that's conditional upon all those things, because I saw that was never ending. But there's a real love that's unconditional. There's a real love that goes beyond being born and dying. To me, that's where, when you connect with that, like, I feel completely free to play. There's no attachment in my life.
Yeah.
I'm not attached to things or what I am. But yeah, it's what a journey to know that's more real, and you can play bigger than you've ever played before when you have that. Like, wow.
Yeah. And my journey is such that, I've had successful businesses and I was always a hustler, and I still have that fire inside of me. But I mean, it was that was my identity. It owned me in the past, and now I have a very balanced life. You know, like I work 4 or 5 hours a day, and I do other kinds of work on myself. But that's surfing, that's being in the sauna, that's, you know, going to the gym. That's my work now. And the crazy thing is, like you said, I still like money. I still like building things. I still like buying things. I still like having things. I have a nice house, and I like all that. But the less that I feel like I need it, the more easily it comes.
Totally. Like, well, you think about it, if you're in a relationship and you're needy, the person you're with is probably going to run, you know? So, but then when you're not needy, there's this beautiful openness, there's this beautiful connectedness, and it's the same with everything in life. But I think to me, there's something that happens there where you realize that things aren't separate to you. So you don't never feel that you're in a state of lack. You know, I feel that when you don't have that sort of awareness, yes, you go into being needy and pushing and manipulating, all of that sort of stuff. But when you're more so connected with who you are, there's more opportunities to experience oneness. You know, there's more opportunities to experience feeling connected, so that there's just a sense of possibilities. And that's when business becomes fun. Like, as an entrepreneur, to have that sort of certainty about yourself where you're not in it because it's like, I've got to get these outcomes, I've got to get these results, but still the outcomes and results are important. Still, money's got an importance to it, but you're not attached to those things. There is so much space then for possibilities, creativity, you know, like, and let alone, regardless what's happening there, who you're being through this process, through the journey, is like alive. You're happy. You're not stressed. You're not overwhelmed. You're not worrying, like, and you're not bringing that toxicity to people around you, to the world. Instead, you have yourself, and regardless of what you're doing, the successes or not, you've got something to give, you know. And to me, when I'm in that space, it's beautiful. Like, I can play. You can really play in life, and I think that's a true entrepreneur there.
So look, I'm going to ask you a bit of a paradoxical question, because I feel like,
yes, go for it.
Like, my question was going to be, all right, how do people become limitless, right? But in my mind also, I'm thinking, all right, well, is there any shortcuts? Is there any fast track? Or have you got it, like, just go through the journey that you and I have been through, do all the dumb shit, do all the wrong shit, to just figure it out yourself? I mean, is there a way you can fast track it?
You know what? Oh, I've had so many clients that have been looking for, like, hacks.
Yeah.
Everyone wants a hack.
Yeah.
You know, like, give me the hack, Monty. What can we do to, you know, to get to from here to over there, you know? And there's a lot of things that people are doing at the moment, like, you know, in terms of just accessing certain space and feeling, feeling energy. But you know what, Monty, you know what I think the most powerful thing to do is to go through your process. And I feel like if you're willing to go through your process and not try to shortcut this and hack it and get to something, that's when the real hack happens. Because you're not afraid of your process. Most people don't want to go through the process because they just want the outcome, the result of something they see someone else living, but don't realize what that person really went through. And we're a society, a world that's like, give it to me now, give it to me now. And we see people living and talking about, you know, who they are and who they're being. They go, they want that. But hey, I've done this for 10 years, maybe even longer, because of all the other stuff I was doing. But I feel like the way in which I've been living the past 10 or so years now has been really about living this stuff, really about living from who I am, you know? And I feel like now I can own who I am because I haven't looked for a hack. I haven't tried to shortcut it. And all the things that I've been through now, I now know that who I am and that sense of being limitless and being able to use that energy now is fucking real. So I don't need to go and use a hack. I'm not looking for the next thing. It was always there. It's in who I am. But most people, they want the hack. They don't want to do the work, Monty. They're scared. I'll be honest. That's one of the things. They don't want to go through their process. I don't want to have to feel the pain. But you don't understand. If you can be willing enough to go through your process, you may find your process isn't that daunting in the first place. See, mind makes it up to be a big thing because, hey, remember we said before the ego is looking to survive. One of its biggest things is that's inside fear, because I don't want you to realize how powerful you really are. You know, like, what's that quote? Is it not Marion Wilson or someone? Anyway, it's like, we're not scared of our darkness, we're scared of our light. Because if you realize who you are, it would scare the shit out of your soul. Like, because you feel who you are and your soul's like, and Amir shares this really well and clearly. It's like the soul is this part of you that feels like it's part of something bigger. But even as the soul peers to realize who it is, this infinite space, it's scary. It's like overwhelming even for this soul, but that is who you are. And to trust that journey and go through the journey of breaking down who you thought you were and who you think you are, man, I love it. Yeah. I'm like, bring it on. Like, I don't want to hack. I want to go through whatever's required so I know that where I'm at and being able to use who I am, especially on an energy level, to be able to see through the illusion, let's say, I want to know that I don't need anything. It's already innate in who we are. It's in our essence. So for me, I don't have a hack for you, Monty. I just have a reality check.
I already knew the answer. I already knew the answer. I just wanted you to share it. I mean, I always kind of I share the question of the hypothetical example of if somebody came to me today and said, all right, you got two options. Here's $10 million, or you can spend the next 10 years figuring out how to get $10 million. And you'll get $10 million. I'm going to take the 10 years every time, 20 years, 30 years. I'm going to take it every time because I know, like, to me, the value it's the wisdom that I develop. It's the character that I develop. Like, that's far more important to me than
Mate, to me, it's who I become. Because when you realize who you are, Monty, you start to get to a place where you realize you don't need anything of this world to give you permission to have, do, be, or whatever is it that you feel to be. Like, that means that if you feel to do anything, Monty, like, I know my life, like the way I live is got nothing to do with me going, well, can my circumstances provide that for me? No, it's because of who I am and making a decision from that space of who I am, making a decision there. And I see then how my reality bends. But I've seen that enough and been through enough process to know that's real.
Yeah.
It's not I'm not making that up. It's fucking real.
Yeah.
I know that now.
But that's hard for people, like that's, when people haven't experienced that their circumstances can unfold based on who they're being rather than the other way around. It's a very difficult concept for the mind to grasp. You can't figure it out.
Welcome to the journey, my friends. Welcome to the journey. So, like, that's where the work comes in. Yeah. Well, you want to break down the mindset that that's been telling you for so long that yes, my circumstances matter. Well, okay, now go follow your feeling. Go fully, and you know why most people are scared, and I get this, even when I began and that day of leaving my office, it's because I was facing the unknown. Like, what's going to happen? That's the scariest thing for a part of me that's been getting security in what I know for my life up until that point. You kidding? Like, I'm going to step into the unknown now, but see, through my process, Monty, I've done that enough and I've dived into the unknown. I now feel certainty in there.
Yeah.
I feel certainty unknown. So that's the gift that people, you spoke about gifts before. That gift is being presented to people all the time. They're feeling moved to do things. I know this. When I connect with people, I go, what's in your heart? And people say, I know what I don't want, but I'm hanging on to that because it's what I know. And I don't know what my life would look like if I followed this feeling.
Yep. Or
I don't know what would happen, my outcome would be, the result, or I'm afraid of what I may lose. The gift has always been there. So that's been my journey is I'm following that feeling, Monty, all the time. The feeling comes to me and I don't know how it's going to happen or whatever. I'm like, let's go. Because I know now that the feeling wouldn't come to me to do something, be or have something if it hadn't already happened. I know that now. I didn't know that. And I get that. People hear that. They're like, what the frig is he talking about? Like, I'm not going to go do that. Like, that sounds risky. Well, hey, that's why this journey isn't for everyone, because some people are more tied into what they have in the story and it matters more to them. Like, I get that. I've been there. So no pressure, but some people, like the point I got to, Monty, and maybe obviously it's where you got to in your life too, because the way you said you're living, I want to live for what I feel, and that sense of aliveness. That's everything to me.
Yep.
Like, fuck, I'll go into my grave sideways skidding following that feeling, like that's everything, to me. It's there's a point you get to. Yeah.
What I like about, and this is why I've resonated with the way that you communicate. I've watched quite a few of your, you do this kind of off the cuff Instagram live. So, like 30 minutes, 20 minutes, however long they go.
Yeah.
And you're just talking about whatever the fuck comes up. Right. But
Totally.
the way you communicate is actually very articulate. So I think there's this kind of misconception that if you're just going to free flow and, you're just making stuff up as you go and you're following the feeling, that it's going to be disjointed, or it's going to not be fluid in some way. But actually that's when you can be the most fluid, and I think the most inspiring and the most resonant with people, because people feel that authenticity. Like that's the most real thing that you can have. Like, this is the things I did NLP, and I studied all that, and I did the NLP speaker training and all that, and it's like I learned all the tools, I learned how to walk the stage and all this, and it's like it became so rigid. I was thinking of the tools in my head all the time, and I'm like, okay, I've got my presentation, I've got my slides, I'm memorizing it all, and it's like, no, throw it all out the fucking window and just talk about what you know to talk about, and it lands better. And you can still use some of those tools, right? But when
you know what I hear with that, Monty, as you say that, is that you got okay with failing.
Yeah.
You got okay with experiencing the fear. You got okay with feeling the fear of failure, and then still were willing to show up. To some people, the fear of failure, the fear of rejection, the fear of getting it wrong is so great that they don't want to let go of holding on to something, but that's the very thing that's getting in the way of them completely letting go, and feeling what you're talking about when you get up. And by the way, like I know I get up there and maybe it sounds articulate now and it comes out clearer, but that's because I've found certainty in that space, in that unknown, and in showing up like that. But I can tell in the beginning, I was probably blubbering on, and like I'd go to my head and I'm trying to think about stuff to say, and I'm showing up, but it was my willingness to fail.
Yeah.
And I think what happened for me, and this is just my journey, everyone has different experiences, but I think that point where I got so depressed and I was like, I'm out of here. I had that point, that moment, that was my nothing else matters. So for me, the fear of failing, the fear of getting rejected, the fear of feeling pain, I was like, bring it on. I'm okay to experience that possibly happening. So I think that's a big thing to take away with what you just said, is that, and for people listening too, are you willing to fail so much so that are you willing to fail so much so that you then have a greater connection to follow what you feel to do?
Yeah.
And to me, that's where you got to get to live from your heart, or your soul. It's just, you got to know that it's more important to align and move from that space.
Yeah. Do you think that what we're talking about here with this massive fear of failure, massive fear of comparison and looking a certain way, do you think that is in part a symptom of, society now, like where humanity has evolved to with technology and Instagram and Snapchat and all this kind of stuff? Like, do you really believe that has had an impact on that, or do you think it's just inherent for humans to self-sabotage?
Yeah. Are we born to fuck it up? I don't know. No, look, I don't know. I see a play going on in the world. I see a play of duality. And although, yes, you can see to one side there's, us being so quick to look to be loved, through what people think of us now. And there's so many tools in the world that are all about getting a sense, getting a hit, like getting a like, or seeing how many people are viewing me, or trying to present yourself in a way that people love you for what you're putting out there rather than you just simply being yourself. I get that. There's a lot of stuff driving that sort of culture. But at the same time, I also see how all this technology and all this stuff is helping us connect to, in greater ways that we weren't able to in the past. So I see both happening. I believe that, the message and that the message of self-realizing is happening in a very interesting way, because I see there's been so much narrative that people fall into so quickly at the moment in the world. There's been all these different topics that have come up in the world, so people very quickly are buying into a narrative to fit in or feel they're part of something. But at the same time, I see how that creates division too, but I almost see like that's almost perfect, for people to experience the duality, but then also come back together in a place of connectedness and oneness, or self-reflect. Like even with the COVID that happened in the world, although it's created adversity, it's also had people stop. It's also had people now be with themselves for the first time. Like one of the biggest things that I have with people when they come to me, in terms of getting some guidance and work, is just slowing them down to connect. Like just realizing they can take that time to stop and connect. Look what COVID did. Like people couldn't go to the office. They couldn't go anywhere. They were literally sent to their rooms to be with themselves. So what an opportunity. Yeah. And I know people that have had huge insights and awakenings because of that.
Yeah.
So I'm like, fuck, what amazing. It just depends. To me, it's all about your perception.
Yeah.
How do you view the world?
And
where are you coming from?
Yeah, I mean, there's been a lot of massive, beautiful new creation in the world, and probably some physical healing for the environment, and
Totally.
and I mean, what I'm kind of reflecting on as you talk about that duality is, it's been the case since the dawn of time that humans have done bad, dumb shit, and then on the flip side of that, there's people doing good stuff, right?
100%.
It's just which is the louder voice, right? And I think that's the thing that's kind of happening at the moment is, and because we are so connected, there's just a lot of amplification. There's a lot of magnification of the narratives and the voices, and that can kind of get overwhelming, I guess. So do you think like I feel like I'm aligned to you in terms of my relationship with the bad shit and the good shit that's happening in the world, right? That's the duality. I feel like I've got a good relationship with that. But are there any like conspiracy theories or things that you buy into in the world that's going on that you go, okay, well, that needs to be addressed. Like this is a real thing that needs to be addressed.
You know what? I had an interesting personal experience with all this stuff. For years, as I said, I've been making it about truth. Like, what's the truth here? You're a truth seeker, and I hear this a lot. There's been a lot of this because the conspiracy stuff in the story, everyone's talking about truth, okay? But as my mentor reminded me very pointedly, about 6-8 months ago, there's the ultimate truth to who we are, and then there's a truth in the story. And if you're looking for a truth in the story, there's going to be a lie, right? Welcome to duality. But to me, it's to realize and acknowledge the ultimate truth. Like in duality, like you said, you're going to find positive, negative, good, bad, and you will see there's going to be a balance. There always has to be. We experience things through time and space. So, sometimes in time we just see the negative, but trust me, there'll be a positive as well, right? To me, it's to not get caught in either of those and realize the ultimate truth. There's just one energy, and to be in that space where I experience the world and my existence from that space. Like, I don't know why this is coming into my mind now, but, people used to say your glass is either half full or half empty. And then one day, a couple of years ago, I heard this thing where someone said, but you know what? Imagine if there was no glass, right? There is no glass. I was like, ooh, that's interesting. Because that's, to me, the glass is my idea of who I think I am. And that's what then comes on my judgments, what's good, bad, right, wrong, according to what I think I am. But then when I realized that I'm not that, and who am I? I'm just energy, right? This whole idea of good, bad, truth, lie, I don't need to buy into, right? Now, in addressing that, like you asked, I had this experience like months ago, where maybe 8, 9 months ago, I had someone that I knew, and he was very, very loud about the conspiracy theories going on in the world. And I kind of started to get blinded a little bit. But then I noticed my mind taking off about what's going on in the world and what I need to do. And it started to feel heavy. And, Amir picked it up and he said to me, where are you going with this? And I said, well, I don't know, isn't these things, like you said, need to be addressed? He goes, well, what, do you want to fall into the game of the truth or the lie? Or do you want to really bring people's attention to the truth and more so your own, and be an example of openness, of love, true love, unconditional love? Because that's where healing happens. That's where true healing happens. You don't buy into a narrative. And that might be hard for some people to hear, because I know some people are very attached to their fears and what's going on in the world, but that's their own stuff. So some people buy into conspiracy theories and the truth or lies in the story because it's their own discomfort that they're then getting to experience through that stuff. It's their own fears coming up, but then they go and empower the story more. I'd first look at yourself and go, well, why does that matter to me? What am I really scared of? How do I feel about that? If it was to happen, you may find it's more about what's going on within yourself. You resolve that. I'd rather than be someone here's amplified the truth that it's not about what's right or wrong, right? But if you experience yourself feeling moved from a place of non-judgment, and your role is to do something in the world and bring attention to something, great. But really, are you doing it from a place of non-judgment? Because most people don't know what that is. Most people are doing it with a judgment, and they're just inciting more fear, more division. So that's how I look at that. And I feel like my role in a way of addressing that is just being attentive to who I'm being, and more present to who I am, which is not in being in a space of non-judgment, bringing true love to the world, a purity, a realness to what is.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I'm sure some people will listen to that and go, but Jamie, you're being naive. And, to not address the issues, but I'm not saying that you not address the issues, but to some people they would hear that and it's like, well, no, you're just kind of living in la la land, like you're skipping past it, and you're being fluffy and you're living in the clouds and you're being naive. But ultimately, at the end of the day, like I said before, like this, I feel like I can participate in these things, in these conversations, but without the charge.
Awesome.
By removing the charge. And I think that's where the power is. That's what you're saying about, being able to shine a light on things without the judgment, right? And I think what you were sharing before about your journey, and mine's been similar, is that the real power for ourselves is when we can take away the judgment. Like when we start out in personal development, it's like we start seeing things about ourselves that we don't like, and then we escalate the problem because we judge it and we go, oh, you're being a dickhead, you're being this, you're being that. And I think when you can live into that and then bring that energy to the world in whatever it is you're addressing, or whatever it is you're passionate about, whatever you're shining a light on, that's a very different space, to bring attention to things. And at the end of the day, this duality that we're talking about, and I do believe that there are people that are puppet masters and pulling strings, and there is that happening. But the antidote to that is not to fight that. The antidote to that is more conversations like this, and helping people to realize their light and live into this, because that's the antidote to all of that. And it's not by addressing those things directly, it's by addressing ourselves.
And if we, like that famous saying, if you want to if you want to change the world, I change myself first.
Yeah.
You know, like it's not, you know, there can only be a puppet master if you give power to the puppet master. Like, otherwise, what's he going to be a master over? If you're not giving power to these people, or these people playing the role. And the way I do that is I see them for who they are. I don't see them I don't buy into the role they're playing in the world, because as soon as you buy into the role, you got to go against it. But if I see them for who they are, I can then respond from a space that's non-judgmental and open, like you're talking about. But like, who are you? Like, come on. When you realize who you are and you see the world and you look into another and you just see yourself, I'm talking about consciousness here, right? Then what's to defend yourself against? What's to be scared of? If you're really seeing who you are in someone else. But, you know, that's where I feel like the work is. Like, if we can get closer and closer to that space, the people that playing the roles, and they're playing the roles to have us lose ourselves and put power into people like that. So then to realize that the power is always in ourselves. So sometimes we've got to go through that. Maybe as humanity, we've got to continue to go through that, to give our power away in such a sense, to lose ourselves, to then have to come together in a way that's more connected and we're more aware. That could be just the way it's playing out.
I think that's the cycle of evolution, and in every generation there's just another version, another level of that. It's been happening since the dawn of time, and I can't see that it's not going to happen. But here's my question to you on that. You know, some people believe that there is possibility for utopia for humanity, and I mean, is that something that you even think about, that you think is possible, or it just doesn't matter?
Man, I think utopia is right here and now for myself. And if I can live that now, then I'm already experiencing utopia for humanity. Yeah. You know, I don't want to make it about a future thing. I don't want to make it about an idea. I believe utopia is a state of mind. And if I can be that, then I'm already experiencing that. Like, my world, my reality is like that, to be honest with you. Like, unless I buy into something or I become attached and I fall for these roles and the things going on in the world. But I know if I can bring that space, other people are feeling it. They're feeling the possibilities. I know that they're connecting with that. They're not buying into narrative. They're not then igniting fear in themselves and therefore others. You know, they're remembering who they are and then bringing this sort of space, this utopia they talk about now. Yeah. You know, otherwise it'll always be, well, you know, when this changes, when this fixes, we'll get there. You know, but I feel like the opportunity is to bring your attention to right now, who you're being. Yeah. You know, where are you going? Are you in your mind about things? Are you in the world? And is there a separation you're feeling? You know, is there fear coming up? Like, where are you at within yourselves? I think if we can bring our attention to ourselves and deeply connect to a space in terms of how we're showing up, how we are participating, right? That's where change evolves from. Yeah. You know, imagine everyone walking around finding peace that was always there within themselves, rather than going at these stories and others and people like, welcome to Utopia.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I mean, the example I use all the time is, you know, the hardcore vegans. It's like, okay, well, you know, you've got a beautiful sentiment and mission behind your, you know, it's a beautiful mission, but the way you're going about it is not inclusive. It's like, you know, the minute you make somebody wrong, they're going to fight back. So, you know, the way to show people that there is another way is, don't tell people they're wrong for eating meat. Cook some beautiful vegan food and offer them to come and have dinner with you and have a conversation and get to know them.
Mate, I think that's beautiful. Like, I have not, like, you know, one of the biggest things over Amir's mum, you know, mentor's mum, she used to say, do not judge, you know, and I'm trying to put on a Persian accent there. Anyway, but she say, do not judge. And it's so simple, but the hardest thing to do, to not judge, right? But I agree with that, you know, like for me, it's like, do whatever you want to do. Be a vegan, be a meat, whatever. To me, my attention is on just what do I feel to do and be that. That's it. Yeah. You know, and see another and let them be themselves. They don't need to be anything different. Like, fuck, how many times I've had to learn that to be I've learned that through relationships, not having expectation on what someone needs to be in order for me to feel safe, order for me to feel peace. No one needs to be anything but themselves. But most importantly, I must be my most important mission is to be myself. Be non-judgmental about who I'm being, without condition, well, this is the way the world should be. No, the world is what it is. And I think when you go to that space, there's huge acceptance and there's an openness, and then there's an opportunity then for people to drop their guard and realize it's okay then to be who they're being rather than continue the fight.
And so many things that you thought mattered and gave power to before just magically dissolve and disappear. Yeah. So
they do. They do.
Yeah, man. Like that's why I think, it's beautiful work that you're doing. You're a mentor. You've talked about Amir as your mentor, and you're obviously a mentor to many people. And a really great example, obviously, in the way that you show up and communicate, because there's a lot of people out there, mentoring, teaching something, and it's like, really? Are you really being congruent with what you're teaching? And so
that's pretty funny. My biggest thing was, I just want to live this for myself first. I think that's the most important thing. Am I really living anything that I'm sharing with someone or speaking of? And, it doesn't mean my life is perfect or I'm perfect or anything at all. I'm not. No way. I still have my moments and forget and be unconscious and all sorts of stuff. But the place that I'm at in my journey, I feel very, very whole and complete at. But that continues to go deeper. The feeling of completeness continues to become richer and deeper, and I never want it to end. But yeah, my biggest thing is to live it first, because I think then when you're living it, people feel it, and that's where you can offer something that's just quite profound. It's just a space, just a space, and people can feel that in their soul. And sometimes it's not even about the words that you share or what you say. It's what they feel and then remember through what they feel, and that can be the most powerful guidance ever, So, yeah, I applaud anyone that's actually really living stuff rather than just trying to be a teacher or be someone because of what they now know. Yeah, man.
So what's the best way people can find you? Instagram. You got some really cool content on Instagram, and I mentioned before I've watched some of your Instagram live and stuff. So I highly recommend people go check out Jamie and his videos.
Thanks, mate. Just Jamie_Gonzalez. That's with a Z at the end. Just through Instagram is where I share my journey, life.
Yep.
There's an intro call there if people looking for guidance and want to connect.
Cool. It's like a discovery call people can do with you to see.
Discovery call. Yep. They get a little questionnaire when they sign up for it, and we have a chat and I connect and see whether this is for them. And then there's a journey that I take people on to self-realize.
Yep.
So yeah, I love it. I have that intro discovery call because it's not for everyone, So I love just having a call and just seeing, where someone's at. Ultimately, they decide. But yeah, this work is very different, But it's as I said to you before, if this body has its day, have a party for me, because I really feel like this past 10 years, levels of aliveness and living has just been profound.
Yeah. Cool, man. We'll make sure people have got the links in the show notes and can go check you out. I've got two more questions for you. I'm curious to understand, you're a pretty healthy, fit guy. And we're talking about meditation a lot, but what are your fundamental, non-negotiable rituals and habits that are there for you every day, every week?
Mate, I'm into movement big time. So I feel like your body is I feel great when I move. So I have non-negotiable. I train at least 2 or 3 times a week, minimum 2. I used to train 5 days a week. I was fully in it, but it was just overkill for me. And I realized that, but I have movement and that's just training. But then every day, without doubt, I find time where I go and when I'm up early for sunrise or throughout my day or in between clients or whatever else, I find myself going for a walk, and I'll take time somewhere in nature where I just stop. And it's not to meditate or anything. It's just to stop and be with myself. Like that is my non-negotiable. Every day I've got that. Like no matter where in the world, no matter what I'm doing, there's time and space for me to be. There's something in that for me. So that's a big non-negotiable for me. Is like, you know, if there's a lot going on in my day or there's things, I always tell people or something, I'll be back. I just go and have my time, you know. There's a lot that happens in the nothingness, let me put it that way. And I know that now. So it's important for me to have that.
Yeah, I think I talked about this with Amir on the podcast. You know, like I used to beat myself up for finding myself staring into space and staring at the wall. And then I realized 10 years later that that's the thing. That's the thing that, you know, comes up with the ideas and the creativity and where my power comes from. It's like, just be okay, sit there staring at the wall.
That's another whole conversation, but there is a lot that happens in that space, and it's pondering. Pondering is very, very powerful. Like it's one of the conversation. That's my non-negotiable. Those things, movement, and just stillness. I didn't say, you know, I studied Vedic meditation and a few other forms of meditation when I was young. And meditation's fantastic, you know. But I have found now in my life, I haven't felt the need to meditate for some time, you know, because I find my life has been about doing what's true for me. And when I'm doing what's true for me, I feel alive. I don't need to connect or find myself. I'm being myself already. So, but I used meditation at a point in my life where it was great to find a practice that connected me with sensing that again. So it was fantastic. But, and I wouldn't be adverse to ever using it again if I go through an experience, and maybe if I'd lost myself and I'm in my mind or thoughts again, I wouldn't be adverse to using that 100%. But yeah, that was one of my things when I met Amir as well. I was like, man, I've used all these things, but I don't want to just sit and have an experience for 20 minutes, the beginning and end of my day, and feel that aliveness and connectedness. How do I live that? How do I take that off my mat and experience that in my doing? You know, like that was one of my burning questions back then. So
yeah, and one of the things that resonated with me about Amir, we were talking about meditation, and I think when I first saw him speak at, I don't know, 2012 or something, he talked about how, you know, riding the motorbike is meditation. It's like, because you got to be so in flow, you got to be in the zone, and you're riding that thing fucking fast. It's like, I mean, you got to be in meditation, and that just really resonated. Like, it's like, how many things can we bring this meditation to in our daily lives? And that's what it sounds like. You've actually just weaved that into who you're being throughout the day. So, yeah,
100%, man. When you're living a life aligned with what you feel to do, that's what happens. You know, like you surf as well. You know, and that's another thing. You know, you're so focused, you're so in the moment. It's not about being anywhere else. You know, it's nowhere to be, nothing else to do. You know, nothing to accomplish. You're just there, and there's just, it's incredible.
Yeah, and I think there's something to be said for doing that in nature, because I mean, connecting with nature in that way, there's a greater force that's happening. But I mean, that's a great thing about surfing and being in that moment, being in that flow, but you're doing it with nature. You know, you're merged with nature. It's
Totally.
Getting barreled.
Yeah, totally. Getting barreled, popping airs, it's good fun. But yes, I think that what you just said then, learning to connect with something else, like you're feeling that flow state, you know, like to me, that's powerful. There's a lot in that.
Yeah. Cool, man. So I've got, one last final question, which I ask everybody, and that is, so if you had the one-time superpower of mental telepathy and you could connect a short, sharp, beautiful message with all 7.8 billion people on the planet, what would that message be?
Be yourself. Just be yourself. That'd be it.
Simple as that. Yeah, I mean, it sounds too simple, but it's very profound. There's actually a lot of complexity in that profoundness. So,
hey, I can tell you something. It is the most simplest thing you could say to someone. Be yourself. But it's the hardest thing for so many of us to do because we put so much before ourselves.
Yeah.
But the ultimate power, the freedom, everything is in being yourself.
Yeah. Yeah, and we all have a different version. We all have our uniqueness, and that's the hard part. It's like you get so wrapped up in trying to be like other people and modeling other people, and
that's the beautiful thing, Monty. I want to see, like, I've had clients that I've worked with, and I've worked on that, and then seeing what they've done, with their lives. Like, I had this woman in New York. She was at a bank, working in a bank. She connected with it. Her name is and she was this young woman. She's like in this bank making lots of money. She's like, I need to, I don't feel alive. And we started working with her. It was about 4 or 5 months in, she left her bank job in New York. And then she started, her hobby was to design hats, make hats. And she goes, and I go, is that what you love? She goes, yeah, it's my new thing. I was like, go do it. She's like, I'm not going to make money out of it. I was like, shh, just go there. Like, you love it. You feel alive. She started making hats. She is now one of the biggest costume designers in the world. Like, fits out celebrities, all sorts of stuff, huge things. She hardly works, but she does this. She works on that. She left the banking. Man, I can tell you so many stories of beautiful things that come to the world when people connect with being themselves. It's the most beautiful thing to watch. So, yeah.
Awesome, man. Thanks. Thank you very much for your time, man. Much appreciated. Awesome to talk to you. We'll make sure everybody gets the links and goes and checks you out. Guys, see you next time back down the rabbit hole. Go check out Jamie. And
see you guys. Thanks, Monty.
See you, Jamie. Cheers, man. See ya.
Bye.